Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. You're going to pay $8 for your Twitter blue check mark. Trevor Noah said, yeah, $8 a month for the blue check mark, because I guess Elon Musk is hoping that everybody else on Twitter will also make terrible financial decisions like he did. With $8 a month, you can subscribe. You get like Netflix, you get Paramount Plus, you get Hulu, or you can pay that people verify that they're actually you. And then he imitated a tweeter going, oh, is this the real Trevor Noah? I hate that guy. Trevor, why are you charging the people? Give it to everybody for free or give it to no one. Doesn't make sense to offer it as a quality and put a price on it. Do you get what I'm saying? Can you imagine if MLK was out there like, I have a dream and I'll tell you about it for $8.99 a month? Stephen Colbert chimed in. Are you telling me that the paragons of authenticity like Papa John's and Papa John's UK will risk falling to the same level as unverified frauds like Papa John's Houston? You know when it's bad when Papa John says we can't in good conscience verify that this is pizza. I listened to SmartLess with their guest, President Joe Biden. I really enjoyed it. They didn't really talk about politics, and I'm not going to talk about politics. What I liked about the episode was hearing about the president's day. He gets up around 7, and he says it works out from 8 until 8:45 in the morning. Kind of alluded to a trainer type. That makes sense. He says he doesn't get to watch much TV. When he does, it's sports. The first lady goes to bed before he does because she's a teacher and stuff and has to get up early. I guess presidents get to sleep until 7. I don't even get to sleep until 7. But unlike me, the president has a 200-page briefing to read at night. I thought it was pretty cool. A couple critiques of the podcast, similar to what I had last week in the Steve Carell episode. And this is the program director in me. My legacy career has been radio. Been doing it now that's November, a full 30 years. Oh my goodness. Yikes. So 3 hosts is a lot. I get that that's what the show is, but 3 hosts is a lot because you can't get a real flow going. These guys need to learn the Johnny Carson theory of guests is let the guests talk. Biden was telling a really sincere story. I was really interested in the story, and Will Arnett stepped on it with a really lame joke. Will actually stepped on the president's answers a few times. Let the guy talk. And what I find weird about SmartLess is on most shows, ensemble shows, I'll use the classic era of the Howard Stern show as an example. I like when the hosts talk or the ensemble talks, and often I would find the guest to be intrusive. I've never been a fan of Howard's guests. I know he's the great interviewer now. I get the revisionist history there. I always like when Howard was just telling me about what was going on in his life and what was going on at the radio station. I was never interested in the guests, still not. But anyway, for the SmartLess guys, when it's just the 3 of them, it just feels like empty banter, and it feels like forced banter because, hey, we have microphones in front of us, so we have to like talk and try and be zany and funny, and they're out one-liners. Not feeling it. Anyway, SmartLess with President Joe Biden. If you have Amazon Prime, you can actually listen to the episode now. It'll be on normal feeds. I believe on Tuesday it's coming out. But if you have Amazon Prime, they have put it up available for all subscribers. You got to go to the Amazon website. It's a whole thing. But I listened to it. It was pretty good. Lin-Manuel Miranda said he blew his chance to work with Weird Al. Miranda said pre-Hamilton, Weird Al was looking to maybe write a musical, and he was meeting with writers. So I took a meeting at his house in Hollywood, and I drove myself there in a rented car. Lin was telling the story to Jimmy Fallon. And he told Jimmy he got nervous. It's like meeting Santa Claus, meeting Weird Al. And I was so nervous that I self-destructed. Lin suggested that someone else would be a better fit for the musical. Like midway through it, I said, you know who you should work with? Bobby Lopez. Bobby Lopez is the songwriter for things like Frozen, WandaVision, and the Book of Mormon. Not too shabby. I was like, he's writing a show with the South Park guys. They're funny. You're funny. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette talked to Bert Kreischer about comedians who have lost weight. They use an example, Jonah Hill, and then sometimes when a larger comedian loses weight, people don't think they're as funny. Bert Kreischer said, oh man, I love Jonah Hill. In my opinion, there's been times when Jonah Hill's been too overweight, like War Dogs. I think he looked uncomfortable, I think a happy artist is a good artist, so whatever the bleep you got to do to make yourself happy. I was 265 at my heaviest, probably 270, and I think it was a detriment to my stand-up. I think people were looking at me and they're like, he doesn't look healthy, he's partying too hard. I've always shot my specials at 230. At 230, I look okay with clothes on, and when I take my shirt off, I look a little doughy, but I don't think I look too fat. They asked Bert Kreischer about self-censoring and cancel culture. Bert said, I don't avoid cancel culture. I look at it this way. I look at cancel culture the same way I look at sharks in the ocean. If you focus on the sharks, then the ocean's no fun. It becomes terrifying. And if you look at stand-up in the same manner and all you think about is cancel culture, then stand-up is no fun. You just got to kind of jump in and enjoy it. And if you get bit, you get bit. I think the onus when it comes to anything I say is to try and be aware that there are things you can say that may hurt someone's feelings. Like there are words I try to avoid, but that's only because I don't have the intent. I'm not that comic. Like I'm not Bill Burr. I don't just not give a hoot. I give a hoot. I give a hoot because I want to make sure that everybody who comes in my show has a good time. I don't want anyone to leave like, well, this kind of sucks. I'm that thing. Why did I have to pick that one thing out? I'm not the guy that like, everybody gets it from Bert. You know, everyone's fair game. My act is that I pretty much talk about myself and my family. And so it'd be a little out of the blue if I was like, look, I have glaring blind spots that I don't see because of just who I am, my upbringing. And I try to be somewhat aware of how my words affect people. But at the same time, I'm not sitting there like, I can't say what I want to say. I think people overthink it a tad, but whatever. I'm sure it'll catch me someday. I don't Google myself anymore. I mean, there are people that obsess about that. Listen, I'm going to ballpark. I've done about 10,000 hours worth of podcasting. I'm certain there's stuff that can be taken out of context, and I'm certain there's stuff in context that I laughed at that I shouldn't have laughed at. I think living in the past is not the best way to go about trying to create your new hour. They were wondering what's the status of the movie, and he said, we're in a holding pattern. Why? There's a conflict in Ukraine and Russia. It's not ideal to try and release a movie about Russia. And I think we can both agree I'm probably the last person that should be on the Today Show giving my opinion on anything. So they don't want me to be sitting out there trying to promote a movie when, you know, it's a tough time for that area and bad things are happening. And then what am I going to do? Go up there and rip my shirt off, killing a beer and go, you guys got to see my movie. So are you going to ExpressVPN or not? Because they sponsor today's Daily Comedy News. ExpressVPN utilizes the best-in-class encryption. Whenever you're connected to ExpressVPN, every piece of data going in and out of your devices goes through a secure encrypted tunnel and cannot be seen, not by the government, not by hackers, not by your internet service provider, not even by ExpressVPN, not even by George Lopez. Nobody can see your data. Your connection gets routed through one of their 3,000 plus servers, hiding your real IP address and replaces it with one of their own. It's good for privacy. You can pretend you're somewhere you're not. You can watch, say, international sporting events or former Beatles doing a concert. I know some people have been known to do that with their ExpressVPN. So what are you waiting for? There's an offer on everything. 3 months free when you sign up for a year. ExpressVPN.com/DCN. ExpressVPN.com/DCN. Link in the show notes. Thank you, Cracked, for putting out an American's Guide to the BBC New Comedy Award finalists. I'm out of my wheelhouse here, so this comes in super handy, Cracked.com. BBC has announced its 6 finalists for the prestigious BBC New Comedy Award. See who we got here. Dee Allam, the recipient of 2 North Downs New Act of 2021 Award and a finalist of the LGBTQ+ New Comedian of the Year 22 competition. As a trans lesbian, the young comic likes to say she's collecting all the letters and describes herself as the most interesting person to come out of Watford since Elton John. Next up, Omar Badawi, an Egyptian-born Welsh comedian who won the prestigious So You Think You're Funny Award at Edinburgh in 21. Joshua Bethania is the winner of 2022's So You Think You're Funny Award. Crack says his takes on Michael Jackson and the British Museum have made him a mainstay act in newcomer competitions. Robbie McShane was named Belfast Best Newcomer 2018. McShane brings with him grave warnings of the longevity and lethality of Beatlemania. Scotland's submission, Marjolaine Robertson, a regular panelist on BBC Radio Scotland's news panel show Breaking the News. Robertson warns of the danger of dating in a small town in Scotland and has a healthy interest in the credit card numbers of her potential suitors. And Dan Tiernan was named the Breakthrough Act of 2021 at the Northwest Comedy Awards. These awards will be held on November 9th. But before that, there was a live gig in Cardiff, and Chortle had somebody there. Their review, the only act who didn't go down as an unqualified storm was the opener, Robbie McShane. He has a quite cerebral, nuanced approach, more darkly whimsical than gag-heavy, which isn't the easiest fit for a short competition set. He started with thought-provoking talk of funerals and the philosophical conundrum of which version of ourselves ends up in the afterlife before moving on to mental health. But not in the expected way. He got the biggest laugh of the set by suggesting we re-stigmatize the topic rather than sharing any of his inner turmoil. Omar Badawi went up and was a gag machine with tightly packed zingers, primarily based on his background as being born in Egypt but raised in Cambridge, giving him an RP accent that meant schoolyard bullies once branded him as a posh terrorist. Chortle says his set was strong, covering his favorite racist experience and a twist on talking about the white savior phenomenon. Stereotypes are skewered in a routine that's tightly delivered with confidence and poise. That sounds like a good set. Dee Allam deals with her situation with a calm, dry yet pointed wit. She starts off with a few knowing, gently delivered gags to clear the air, lest anyone in the room be holding on to any discomfort from the media demonization of trans women like her, before sharing a delightfully funny story of coming out to the HR officer at work. Dan Tiernan portrayed himself as a kid in a 26-year-old's body, and very convincingly, too, in a giddy, excitable, hyperkinetic performance. He's even happy to just be making daft noises, as are the audience to hear them. Marjolaine Robertson, the most experienced comedian on the bill, is far more controlled in her warm and beguiling delivery, introducing us to her slightly magical upbringing on the Shetlands, at least in her telling. She's an engaging storyteller, and her relaxed approach favors creating a warmly witty mood above hard one-liners. Indian comic Joshua Bethania drolly addresses prejudices in his softly spoken set. Some topics are predictable, call centers, colonialism, but many are not. Most subjects are given a gentle twist. Maximum kudos goes to Mark Olver, proving why he's the most sort-up warm-up man in the business by keeping the audience engaged and excited throughout the tedious bits of making a TV program. Who won? Well, we don't know yet. You'll have to watch the final on BBC One next Wednesday at 10:40. And depending where you are, you might need your ExpressVPN for that. See? And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your shows. There's an audio-only version on YouTube. And don't forget on Tuesday, Americans, you're going to vote